I checked, including domain-specific languages, we had 100 languages in our portfolio. It was very rapid for us to do that.
Place yourself on mute. As we go around the room and do introductions, we're going to ask each company to do a little intro on themselves. For those companies that are not in the room, we'll call out your name, and if one company from, one person from your company can do just a quick introduction on your company, your brief, 3 or 4 capabilities, and especially as they apply to COMET. So you can do that amongst yourselves and figure out who's going to be the person that's going to speak from your end. But if we could ask you to stay on mute until we call on your company name. Thanks. All right. Hello and welcome. We're so happy that you're here because this means that you have come along with COMET. And that means that we've won COMET after, I think the last time that we had a number of you in the room was when we were going through the capture process. Some of you were on the phone, but a number of you in the room. So thank you so much for being here today. I know some of you came a long distance, so we so appreciate that you flew in from California, Atlanta, so not everybody is local to the DC area. And that was kind of a little ploy on our part to bring a little bit of outside DC companies to GSA, and hopes that GSA gets a little flavor of what's outside of the DC metro area. But we'll kick off the meeting, and I'll let Pradeep kind of go through the first initial slides of introduction. One of the things, as I mentioned, we'll go around. We have logos for each company name, and when we get to your logo, if you don't mind, one person from the company just kind of standing up and giving us a quick overview of who you are and maybe how long you've been in business and what are your capabilities. And we'll go from there. Good? Okay.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming and joining us here. I mean, Gisa and I, we always exchange notes, and so by the way, if you didn't know, we work in PAX, Gisa and I, and we've always talked about Cameo, COMET. It's been so long, and to have this day here, it's awesome that we're all part of that winning team. So let's get into we have a slide deck, obviously. Folks who are on the phone, are they able to see this? So we have a slide deck. We'll drive through this. Obviously, stop us if you have any questions. As we go through this, we just wanted to kind of set the expectations and get us all onto the same plate. With the welcomes, team introduction. I'll introduce myself, Gisa, and there's a list of folks that can go in, and then can do the team introduction. So my name is Pradeep Krishnanath. I'll give you a little bit of my background in context of GSA. Been with REI 10 years now. Spent all that time at GSA doing a boatload of activities, right from leading some of the transparency initiatives in the earlier government to modernization transformation as late as this year at FPAS. Obviously being intricately involved with the COMET shaping and capture customer relationship. That's my background. What am I going to do on COMET? I'm going to lead our teams, solutioning, shaping, customer touch points, obviously working with several other folks within REI, but I'm going to take that lead and work closely with most of you, or all of you actually. Gisa?
Gisa Sateri, Business Development Director, and my sole focus is really GSA. There's a couple of agencies here or there that I might focus on, but I spend most of my time at GSA, and before I came to REI, I spent a good part of my time at GSA as well, so it seems like I've been at GSA going back to SHAP remembers the Lotus Domino days of migration to Salesforce and Google, so it's been quite a journey with GSA, so I'm so happy to finally have a chance to go after a lot more FAS work. And just so everyone knows, outside of COMET, there's a lot of other work that we have, REI has at GSA. So it's not just the COMET work. We have work across multiple offices. So I also support all of those as well.
So actually there is a little brain teaser in Gisa's first name. I have to do this. If you guys can figure this out, you'll see that there is GSA. So she was actually born to do this. We are in good hands. I had to do it.
Samantha?
Sure. I I've met almost everyone. My name is Samitha Manu, and I am the business unit lead for federal services, and that's the business unit that includes COMET as a program, amongst others. I am not familiar with the GSA landscape, unlike these two that have been born and raised there. I am actually very familiar with REI systems, having been here 5 years. So what I bring to the program is participating in celebrations, that's me. Being there whenever these guys need support organizationally, removing roadblocks, and of course helping them forge getting us to the $1 billion vehicle and getting past that to the task order win. So whatever it takes to get us there, I'll be there for the team.
We know expense checks.
Yeah, that's right.
Hi folks, Ian Thomas, capture manager. You probably all talked to me or heard from me at some point throughout the capture process for the vehicle. And unfortunately, to your benefit or not, you'll be hearing from me again as we chase vehicles. And I'll be talking about that a little bit more later on in the slides.
Mr. Fletcher.
Scott Fletcher, Chief Operating Officer of REI. I remember our first project at GSA. It was actually in 2007, working on USA spending under the Obama administration, or the Bush 2 administration, and then continuing into the Obama administration, supporting them with their open government and transparency initiatives. So it all started with USA spending and then recovery.gov and introducing Drupal into the federal government. And it's now culminating 10 plus years later with COMET, which is a tremendous accomplishment for the team, and I really do congratulate all of you. I'll let Gene speak to our capabilities, but this has been a long time coming, and we're happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Gene Zepfel. I'm the Chief Growth Officer for REI. I've been here about 4 months. The day I joined REI is the day the COMET RFP was released. My life has been COMET for the last 4 months. But talk about stepping into a business at the exact right time. At the end of 4 months, 3.5 months, REI wins COMET. Like I said, about 4 months. I've been at several of the competitors before, some time at Unisys, and of course, Unisys has always had a big business at GSA, and before that, some time at Booz Allen as well. But REI, this is a watershed moment, for the company to be able to take on this kind of a challenge. And to get this kind of recognition by the client in the market is just magnificent. But the easy part is done. Right? The easy part was winning the BPA, which was not easy, but now we've got to go win the task orders. And there's going to be hard competition on every one of them. So we're going to talk today about how do we get the input from the team, participation from the team, client interface, everything it takes to now win the task orders, which is really what this is about. But again, thank you all for your participation and input. I'm very pleased that Gisa and I work together closely, and she's very successful, which of course makes the whole company very successful, along with Pradeep and Ian and Sumit as well. So welcome to REI, and let's go hunt together going forward.
Thank you, Gene. Now we all know the good luck charm.
Yeah, that's right.
So we missed Subhash Khare. He's not here in the room, but he's REI's Chief Technology Officer, very intricately involved with solutioning for COMET and in the potential task orders that we go after. So you will see a lot of them in some of these meetings.
So that's just an overview, a little glimpse of the team members. So you can take that in for a second. You may recognize some companies. Some companies may be, again, new to the DC metro area and the federal contracting world. And then we'll kind of go through the next set of slides, and I think we're going alphabetically. So we're going to ask, I think Acela, Parag, you may be on the phone. If we could get Parag to just do a quick intro on Acela.
Hi, actually this is Amit Varghese.
Awesome.
Parag is also on the line. I'm the president of Acela Technologies. We're really happy and honored to be part of this winning team. Acela is actually worked with REI on a couple proposals before, so we're really excited to actually win some work on COMET. And so just some background about us is we're currently doing some agile transformation work at GSA. So we've been at GSA for a few years, and we, in addition to the agile transformation work, we do a lot of work in the federal financial space.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amit.
Yeah.
So, Mark Alford from SI, I have Fred here with me as well. We're excited to be part of this team and support. We've been doing acquisition support for the federal government, as well as strategy and OD, as well as data analytics. We have been supporting FAS for a while now, supporting their category management initiative, as well as some of their data analytics support as well.
So as everyone goes through, hopefully it kind of resonates with you when they say acquisition. There's a large acquisition portfolio and contract rating system. That's why you have folks like ASI on the team. Cisco?
Hi, I'm Jason Goldman, Managing Director North America for Cisco. Also, let me say how grateful we are to be here and also for the hard work that REI did to win this capture program. We know the kinds of effort it takes, and we are very deeply grateful for what you guys did. We are a Dutch-based company, proudly Dutch, which means we're both blunt, but it also means we deliver on our promises. We're out of Coevoort in the Netherlands, 40 years in business, 20 years focusing solely on mainframe migrations, and at our heart and soul is Unisys mainframe migrations. So that's what we do.
Which is the heart and soul of a lot of the systems that are sitting here at GSA FAS. Vada? No one from,
Yeah, so I'm Manish Jain. I'm on the phone here. So I'm the CTO at Avata. Our capabilities focus on providing artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science solutions, as well as deploying and managing the entire lifecycle for these AI solutions. While we've deployed a few security systems for the federal government, and we are partnering with REI on a few ideas, this will be our first effort towards GSA, and we are very excited to be here.
Thank you very much. GD.
Hi, I'm Shaf Mohebbi from General Dynamics. We are a 37,000 organization in providing IT services. We have actually current work at the GSA. We are managing, we are part of the team managing the infrastructure. Very active. We have subject matter expertise in all IT areas, and we currently have about 5,000 active contracts and task orders that we are managing.
What about your history with COMET?
I've been pursuing this opportunity, working on this opportunity for the last maybe 15, 20 years, and I'm 3 out of 4, 3 wins, 1 loss on this.
I was telling Shaf, it's always nice to come back from a loss and win it, right? How does it feel? Feels good. Feels good. Yeah.
So this is Vijay Veerapan from Global Align. I'm the CTO here. I have Rajan Natarajan. He's the CEO of the company as well. So we're pretty new, not 30 years, 40 years. We've been here for 3 years. So we do a lot of work in the RPA, AI space, AI ops. So we have our own products as well that we've developed. We sell currently to the federal government, as well as a lot of state projects in the state of Maryland. So we're Maryland-based, as you can see. So it's our first win at GSA. We're glad to be part of this big team. Hope we get some work here.
Thank you.
Hi, Paul Kukowski, Hitachi Vantara Federal. Hitachi is bigger than Alphabet. We're like a $9 billion a year company. The Vantara side is North America, which is hardware and software. We're legacy, a lot of disk, infrastructure pieces. About 5 years ago, Hitachi decided we're not going to compete with AWS or Azure, so we're going to focus on data, right? Data, AI, machine learning. Actually, there's some people in this room who we're currently doing work with on the AI side as well. And our real focus is on cloud migration and automation pieces that rely on that piece.
Yes.
Hi, this is Priyank Devanraj. I'm the Vice President of Cloud Mobility and Software Development Solutions at OBX Tech. We just did our 10 years celebration. We are a $100 million company as of today. We have executed more than 300 task orders and contracts in the government space. We have cybersecurity, centers of excellence, ID engineering, data center management, and software development, agile, DevOps, the complete spectrum of the ID space. We have some work at GSA in the fleet management. We also, in our past, have done other work at GSA. So we kind of are there, but not as much as you guys. Thank you.
Sorry.
Grant Williams, Director of Capture Proposal at Macro Solutions. Macro's been around for almost a little over 19 years. We started out in the ERP space, so supporting financial management systems, kind of a lot of back office, business analysis type support. But we've starbursted more in application development, DevSecOps. That's kind of really where our bread and butter is. So we have a contract at FDIC where we won their first Agile Team Vehicle IDIQ. So we're kind of leading the charge in the Agile space at FDIC. So we hope to bring some of those calls to this contract, kind of all of the quick teaming and building teams, Agile teams. We think we definitely add some value there.
Hi, I'm John Turns with Saison. Saison's been around since 2002, doing business as Saison. They were acquired by Alcatel-Lucent before they restarted in 2002. Commercial company, specializes in software development, native mobile development, and what we kind of call asset utilization, which is taking location-based information and data, GPS and others, and being able to do that into data-driven dashboards, powered by AI and predictive analytics and some of those things. So we don't offer any products, custom company, very grateful to be a part of the team, and add a little commercial flair.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Well, I'm Paul Masters, Chief Operating Officer for Snap. And so first of all, I'd like to say thank you for the hospitality of being here today and being part of the team. Thank you very much. Snap's been in business for about 20 years, and primarily a systems integrator. Largest customer, Department of Agriculture, Forest Service, where we are just completing the $100 million tower award as it went into recompete. And we do work for NAS. We also do work at GSA in the area of with the OCIO for analytics, BI. But again, primarily soup to nuts, systems integration and software development and the like.
Is he dialed in?
Amit, are you on the phone? There, I can't go look at that. No, he's probably working on another requirement right now. So Amit's company.
I'm Dylan Steinman. I lead partnerships at Silicon Valley Software Group. I'm joined here today with our managing director, Chris Maresca. We are very fortunate to be here. Thank you all for calling us. This is our first government project or engagement that we participated in. Silicon Valley Software Group is a CTO consulting firm. So we have plus or minus 15 CTOs on our roster, and we help organizations at all stages, shapes and sizes, do anything from digital innovation, implement advanced technologies, AI, machine learning, analytics. We do a lot of interim CTO work and a good amount of technical due diligence projects. And then in addition to our CTOs, we've got a couple teams of engineers that help to support our engagements. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much for being
I'm Philip Newcomb. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for TSRI, which is the Software Revolution Inc. And TSRI won the first Modernizing Government Technology Award and is currently modernizing HUD, CHUM system. We have several follow-ons to that already in the chute. We've modernized more than 200 large-scale information systems across a wide variety of different languages into multiple target languages, and we not only convert the systems fully automatically, but we also augment that process with a high level of cybersecurity analysis and remediate issues and so on in the code as we're doing code conversions. I'm also the co-chair of the Architecture-Driven Modernization Task Force and the recipient of the IEEE Stevens Award for modernizing the European Air Traffic Control System.
Thank you.
And also on the team, I think we have on the line other members of my team.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have anyone from Unison on the? No, we don't. So So they're mostly a product company and a contract writing system, Prism. And as you know, there's a good portion of this work that's around modernization of the contract writing systems at GSA, so that's why they're on the team. And I guess we don't have anyone from Unislaughter, no? Okay, all right. All right. So, COMET, what is the work? What does it entail? One of the homeworks I'll pass on to those that are, if you haven't done the homework already, is kind of getting familiar. Say that for those that are not there already in the agency, to get an understanding of how they're set up, what their mission is, and what they focus on. So, Federal Acquisition Services. COMET used to be Cameo, and that's what Chap was referring to, and it was between two companies that had probably about $600–700 million worth of work of managing all the systems that are under Federal Acquisition Services. That includes fleet, their e-commerce, their contract writing, their, what am I forgetting, real property. So a number of systems that all fall under portfolios, as they call it, that falls under Federal Acquisition. That's their largest office. About a year ago, I had kind of approached the topic with some of the incumbents. What about if GSA decides they're not going to buy this like the way they've bought it all the way up, for the past 10 years, and they're going to split this up and buy teams and actually get these systems modernized a little faster than they have up to now. And I think they laughed me out of the building each time. Yeah, that would never happen. GSA will never do that. Well, lo and behold, divine intervention, and somehow GSA did decide. We were able to convince them. It moved out of FedSim, which is a good size organization that was managing the contract for Cameo. It moved out of there and it went to Region 5, which is the contract office that manages our IAE work. And our IAE work, that's exactly what the work entails, buying agile teams that are going to modernize systems and get them out very quickly. So they decided to break it apart and actually go through an effort of modernizing these systems that were supposed to be modernized 5 years ago and never happened. And so we have, I think the next slide goes through the list of awardees for COMET. So REI is one of the awardees. We're on the full and open side. They do have some small business set-asides. Another criteria for COMET was that they were going to have a good portion of the work set aside for small business, because as federal agencies have to account for some of the work going towards small businesses. So I'll just let you digest that list. I'm sure you know some, maybe all of the companies on that list. You're on this team, and so I hope that if you have any market intelligence on any of these folks, that you will share that with us and make sure that our team is aware of that market intelligence, because this is the team that we're going to now compete with on the task orders that are going to come out. So instead of two companies owning all the work that was under FAS, you're now going to have that split up into task orders. Task orders are going to come out, and each of these 12 companies get to compete on them. They haven't decided, and they haven't kind of passed it. We're still very early on in the award process, so shortly we're going to hear about our kickoff with GSA, and so hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about how they're going to kind of manage these task orders. Are they going to set some aside for small businesses or not? But for right now, we know that they're going to release the task orders. What do you know? They're not. They did not win it. They actually. So what we found out at stage 2 that they didn't make it to stage 3, but then we found out they actually didn't make it past stage 1, and they're on the Unisys team. So I don't know if that's good for Unisys or bad for Unisys, but let's hope it's. But they didn't make it past stage 1 apparently, and stage 1, if you remember, was the past performance stage. You had to come up, and we know that, we talked to every one of these companies along the way, because everybody was trying to either get us on their team or we wanted them on their team, but at the end of the day, everyone decided that we wanted our, we have a lot of work at GSA, we felt like we wanted to do this on our own. So some companies like ITG clearly couldn't do it on their own, so they did a CTA with Accenture. Other companies, went at it alone. I don't know if they were able to use all their past performances or not, or if they used some of their partner past performances. We used all of our own past performances. So we had enough past performances to show that we've had 3 projects at the size that they requested, and a modernization project having that many agile teams at the dollar value that they asked for. It was a tough call. I know that some of the companies, the largest, were having difficulty with that because although they have good sized contracts, they don't have modernization contracts. They have O&M contracts that have some DM&E in it, but not all DM&E work. And this was about show us where you've done modernization.
I have a slight plug at the scope. When you look at the scope, it talks about modernization and agile delivery teams and all of that. Folks who are following Cameo COMET, this is what they said in Cameo as well, right? With Leidos, that modernization, clearly things didn't work, and they ran a lot of pilots and proof of concepts, a lot of investment from GSA. As an example, for the FAST IAE project, where they, for the first time at least, they bought agile teams, were focused on modernization, did business process reengineering, had lessons learned, and they're plugging that back into this PPA. So as we walk out from a scope standpoint, it's a different game this time. A lot on modernization. You will see many of the lights on system and the funding will taper down very soon for those systems, because the modernization and where they go with that is where GSA is plugging.
Yeah, and that was kind of the idea that, go ahead.
Yes.
Can I ask a quick question about this? Because I was reading some of the documents earlier, and there seemed to be a heavy emphasis on open source and on potentially open sourcing the results of these modernization projects. But how is that viewed in this room, I guess, around what does that mean for the GSA?
So
in full disclosure, I was the first CTO for Linux Foundation, so I know way too much about open source.
Yeah.
So, and I actually did open source strategy for a couple of cabinet level agencies. So, yeah, so that's why I'm asking the question. It's a very
good question.
I first want to say you're in good hands. So, second thing, a lot of or most of the projects that we have done for GSA, GSA is very open source friendly. Let's start with that. Many of the initiatives that I've been involved with in terms of transparency, Scott mentioned about us introducing the Drupal framework, content management. The GSA is subscribed to that. The programs that we ran for modernization within FAST, they are all prescribed to be open source. So that is their choice of going into it. But there are courts implementation where wherever it's needed, they would plug that in. So, but custom development, the preferred choice is open source.
Yeah, the decision that they've made is they will use COTS where it makes sense, like a contract writing system where it may have been developed somewhere already for other agencies and they're using it, and maybe some customization there. But for where customization is required, it's going to be open source.
And so, to your point about releasing the code, right? I mean, one of our contractual obligations, like on a program that we run, is that you release. That's beta.sam.gov. SAM, as you know, is the registration system for all entities. It is required that you release the code in a public forum that other government agencies can share. You reuse it and things like that. So, GSA is big on shared services. And one of their initiatives, the CTO initiative, is to go open source, release as much as possible to agencies so that they can reuse it. So,
right. I guess I have a ton of other questions, but let's just leave them at that for the moment.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, I think. Thank you.
Please interrupt at any point. Okay. Any other points on the competition slide? No.
I do have one question there.
Yeah.
So in terms of what you saw through the competitive process, do you have any initial thoughts of who the fiercest competition that you would deem at this point?
So there's some of the companies that we come up against fairly often, and I can just kind of go through the list. So I think everyone's familiar with Unisys and right now on their footprint at GSA. Well, some of them maybe not. So the Unisys mainframes are the ones where I would kind of worry if, they may have an advantage over others, right? Octo, we work with them on SAM.gov. They don't have a footprint at GSA outside of that IAE work. TechFlow used to have work at GSA, doesn't really have prime work at GSA right now. They're managing Assist, which is going to be one of the systems falling under here. DMI, no real.
They don't have
GSA.
any.
Yeah. Perspecta, PBS work, no FAS work, although they just want a task order. Let's see how they're going to deliver against it. Booz Allen, that will be a company that we'll probably compete against fairly often, but yet we do have a good relationship with them that maybe it may make sense on some areas that we kind of team up together on some things, because you can do that at this stage of the BPA. They haven't precluded companies from doing that, although the essence of this was going to be the fact that if you're on a team and you're not performing, we're going to get rid of you, and you're going to roll off this BPA. So if folks start, doing all these kinds of teaming after the fact, it's going to make it very hard for them to get rid of those underperformers. CGI, no work currently at GSA. I'm sure they're looking at the contract writing system work, but really nothing. Carson, we're part of their team for Cameo, and clearly they're a great company, and certainly that will be a competitor. Sebitech, no footprint at GSA. The dollar sign of COMET attracted them to the vehicle, and that's the only reason that they went after the work. And they have SAIC on their team, and that's the only reason they want to O&M task order. Collaboralink, no GSA work outside of a GREX, that's a system within PBS. Kind of known as an Appian shop, but clearly do some of those modernization work, but they're not really anywhere else at GSA outside of PBS. ITG, Accenture really has no work at GSA right now. They had left GSA for a while and came back only because of COMET. In ITG, there's just, unfortunately, they have some good relationships at the executive level, but at the delivery level, they just cannot deliver. So they can win work, but can they keep the work? So I don't know that I'm too worried about them. I'll be worried about them with those executive relationships that they can kind of set. So does that answer everybody's question? Does that answer your question?
I would just like to volunteer. I'm less worried about Unisys because in my interactions with them, they did not seem to be too receptive to a modernization strategy. They really wanted to keep stuff as long as they could with their customers, and they were interested in maybe moving to ClearPath, but they were ambivalent and uncertain about it.
You're 100% accurate in all the discussions that I've had with them, and just seeing them at play within GSA. It's usually, let's just keep things going as is. And one of the things that they've constantly tried to tell GSA is that, you don't want to get off those Unisys mainframes. It's cheaper for you to stay on the mainframes than it is for you to ever migrate anything to the
Well, they
cloud.
also have a pretty good cybersecurity record as well. I think they have the strongest in the industry in terms of risks associated with their mainframe.
They're also promoting the fabric computing in their their forward platform, which allows multiple platforms, including Linux, to coexist on their hardware.
Is there good market intelligence information for you to share when it comes time to compete against them on these task orders? This is just a very, very high level of some of the decision makers. For example, the FAS commissioner just left as of October 11th. We had a good relationship with him, and they have someone acting in the role, Julie Dunn. I've met her briefly. She's just been on the job for a week or so now. This is certainly not everybody that we need to interact with because every one of those 100 some odd systems under FAS have a business owner, have technical owners. So there's lots of folks below all these folks to get to know. And some changes, there's already, because of COMET, there's been some changes on who's going to really manage fleet, for example, and so forth.
And this is a good list that we potentially see getting built through this partnership. And we'll talk about that, some sort of combined marketing, putting a face in front of the customer, folks that you know. So this obviously list will grow and change.
So what do we, and just to go back to even the beginning slide, but a lot of what we're sharing with you is not common knowledge amongst the other teams, because not everybody has a footprint at GSA, or not everybody even has a footprint across the different offices that REI does. So what we're sharing with you, not everybody knows. There's not a pipeline out there that says these are the task orders that are coming out. These are things that we know just based on the relationships we have or discussions that we have with our customers. So as you possibly, some of you may work with booths somewhere else. Just know this, that they might not know everything that this team knows. So just keep that really confidential into yourself. So right now we know that IAE is going to put out a couple of task orders. They put out a couple of task orders as part of the initial RFP, but there's going to be some more additional task orders that are going to come out. We know that COM, which is the contract writing system, that actually we knew that they were going to drop a draft, and they actually just dropped it yesterday. So one thing that the Region 5, which is the contract office, has done an excellent job, is that they have kept to the timelines. If they said it's going to come out at a certain time and they're going to award it at a certain time, they've done that. They didn't even have any protests, which is amazing. Everyone expected. Gene himself would keep telling me, you're going to have protests, you're going to have protests. Let's wait and see. So they've done an amazing job at keeping to that and keeping to the schedule. So we don't foresee a lot of delays, maybe a week here, a week there, but everything's been working like clockwork.
Yes, we'll do that.
Please fill out your time sheet.
We'll do that. Yeah, got it. Thank you, Kevin.
You know you're working for a government contractor when.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So we will be, when we get to the next slide, we'll talk about how we're sharing the task orders with you, but just so you know, draft just dropped. Fleet is the next set of systems. One of the things that we know that they're not necessarily going to modernize system by system. We may see functionalities that are common across a set of systems, and they're going to drop a task order wanting a team to be set up for that specific functionality. So fleet, although all those systems need to be modernized, you're not going to see system by system. We may see multiple task orders come out across fleet. Real property is another. FSS 19 is another, and this is kind of an order of what we're anticipating. Now it may shift, and we saw COM come out, we may see a fleet and then a real property one come out, or vice versa, but this is kind of the order of what we envision the task orders are going to be released under. FSS 19 and then GSA assist. There will be others amongst here, but this is kind of what we're anticipating right now. Hopefully we'll find out more when we go off to the COMET Kickoff with GSA, but right now this is what we know.
And another piece of information is these are not like, again, the way we see it, it's not going to be individual procurements per swim lane. It may be broken into multiple pieces, smaller task orders, and that's how we feel that this will go. It's not going to be like fleet, entire, go modernize, or think about defragmenting it. So we expect that each of these swim lanes will have multiple task orders coming.
And what we're working towards right now is to, and what we would like your help on is, as we think through fleet, and if and GSA is thinking through how do we modernize specific functionalities that go across these systems, right? Helping us think through that to be prepared for those task orders, and then doing joint marketing before the task orders come out. So obviously some task orders are going to start coming out right away, but then there's some that we can get ahead of. So that thought process and getting together to think through those is what we're asking you to start thinking about now.
So a couple of things, because I was talking to one of the competitors and they were saying that, and just lining up, they were saying that 7 task orders are coming out during the queue. And they were saying they expect 3 within the next month.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, where exactly that would, where in terms of the falls here. Do we know the timing in terms of the 3 that are coming out in the month? Do you have an inkling on which ones?
It's probably going to be the IAE one, and maybe they were referring to the draft on COM, and Fleet's got already task orders lined up to come out.
I think I'm the only OEM here, but when you talk about joint marketing, We have tons of marketing development funds that we are open and willing to use. So if you want to do breakfast and bagels with somebody, or if you want to do events, we're certainly happy to provide sponsorship.
So, question in regards to like legacy contracts that would kind of feed into this. We haven't, or I guess it's a strategy to start to look at companies that have current work there. It might not be the modernization piece, but some of the sustainment stuff that they're going to be doing to, and then do some ghosting so that we can try to figure out what the competitive landscape is going to look like based in, and who's on the teams that have some of the current incumbents in these systems.
Exactly. So most of everything will be what was under Carson and Leidos, and neither Carson or Leidos won. Well, Leidos is not on the BPA at all. But Carson did not win any of the O&M work. So it's looking at the O&M systems and trying to figure out the lineup of how those systems are going to get modernized. Assist is one that's not under Cameo right now. It's by itself. It's about $125 million, and that's work that TechFlow, ITG's fronting it now, and TechFlow have. Customers not happy with it. It's a system that hasn't been modernized. If any of you use Assist, you know it's a pain in the neck to use, and it's a system that doesn't work very well. So to think through in the next 13 months, that contract's going to come up for a recompete, getting prepared of how do you modernize Assist.
Briefly, one thing that starts to raise as a red flag for me is that as part of O&M, it may be necessary in order to start the modernization to really investigate the size, scale, scope of the functions that are being modernized. So for instance, if Unisys has the O&M on fleet and we need to go in and find out detailed information about the fleet systems that Unisys has to provide and they obstruct, do we anticipate a way to escalate or address? It's never good if the company that's supposed to be facilitating the modernization doesn't want it to happen. So do we have any kind of thought process around, does GSA have a referee?
Actually, that's a great use case for fleet, right? If you look at fleet and the functional decomposition, the modernization work started 2 years ago for fleet. That's a great example. That work, the functional decomposition, the business process reengineering, that work has started. It's an independent company, not Unisys, that is doing. So they are building those epics or stories or requirements and all of that. That work has been going on. So fleet is a classic case where they can go in and say, yes, these functionalities go in, that's a task order that's going to come out and be done with it. So great example of how GSA would do this. And we want to say for many of these systems, they've started the modernization roadmap has started. Now it's about technology implementation and making the re-engineering work. So, does that answer?
Yeah, I was just concerned that if anybody's holding the O&M and has to facilitate the modernization and they don't want to, that could present a challenge for the modernization teams.
I guess it'll present a challenge for GSA, but I think GSA is very committed that this is going to happen, and the sheer fact that they're going to pull systems out from under those who have the O&M to move them to modernization. I mean, that's kind of what we have to depend on, and also a lot of our legwork of making sure that we're meeting with the customer to convince them that this has to happen and not to fall for. Just keep it where it is.
Introduction of commercial best practices into some of these areas, definitely fleet and FSS 19 in terms of supply chain. Companies like Avis, GSA has been talking to some of the commercial vendors out there and Amazon in terms of FSS 19, that would definitely help.
100%. And actually, going back to Chris's question as well, like for example, on fleet, they had initially thought that they would buy a COTS product and made the decision that they're not going to go COTS. They want to do customized solution, and customized meaning open source.
Well, the other thing that's really strange is that open source is sort of in opposition to mainframes, which is an odd tension, right? I'm not sure how Unisys resolves that. And having actually worked on Unisys' open source strategy, I don't think they know how they will resolve it. So.
One of the other great things on fleet, we just won work for the transportation audit management system. And they're using that piece of work, and Amit just walked into the room, so he can actually even talk about it, but they're using that piece of work as how the rest of the task orders under fleet could potentially, the pipeline of how you're going to modernize these systems. So they're using TAMS as the example for the fleet systems. You want to say anything?
GSA has decided that they are going to move away from the legacy technologies, mainframes, and legacy way of doing things. So they don't want to take big bang approach. So they're going to take it incrementally. So they have selected 2 applications, TAMS being one, to modernize. So what they're going to take microservices and stream-based integration and containerization, cloud approaches to modernize the application. So they're building the services with TAMS. That is the first approach, and they're going to use the same approach that we're using for TAMS to modernize the rest of the fleet applications. One bidder, that is the approach.
So we feel excited that we won that work because that really kind of set us up for what we can expect for the rest of the fleet modernization systems. Next.
All right. So some housekeeping, and there's 2 slides when you talk about responsibilities, just to kind of set the expectation, like what's going on, and there will be more details in further slides on what's happening. Did we miss a slide? Yes. So as a prime REI systems, all aspects of the BPA, managing the BPA, including receiving the task order, talking to team members, making it available for the team members, coordinating the delivery of going through the mechanics of responding to the task order, solutioning, leading that. We'll drive most of that through the team that's here. Obviously, there's a mechanism that we're figuring out on how we get the task order out, and we'll talk about that, be it through a portal or through an email. As soon as task orders comes in, what kind of process do we go through? We can't be going after everything, but how do we make that decision? How do we make that call? There is a series of steps that's following. Personally, this building and managing in past performance, we've always found that when we have to respond to a task order, what happens is past performance. That's when we scurry around. We want to be proactive about it. Very soon, you all will have data calls to kind of take the Lego pieces, put it in a bin, get ready with it. So that's one of the first things that's going to happen, is start collecting some generic past performances, build a database, and when it comes to task order response, massage it and deliver it. So nothing earth-shattering, but these are some of the things that as REI we would do.
So before you move on, so for right now, I will have the responsibility of emailing you the task orders every time they come out. So like you're going to see the COM one, I'll pass on that draft that's come out. You'll see all the documents there. And initially we're going to ask you that some of these are going to be very quick turnarounds, because that's the whole idea under COMET. They want to put out a task order, get the responses quickly, and award it quickly. So when they come out, we're going to ask you to, within 24 hours to please review it. Let us know where you feel as though you can fill a gap. You have capabilities that align with it. You have customer relationship, whatever it may be that aligns with that piece of work. Please let us know ASAP. Obviously, we'll have some ideas on team members that we want to include on certain task orders, and on others maybe that you just are going to let us know that I can fill this gap, and then obviously it helps us make that decision on who do we include on that particular task order to go after.
And every time we talk to folks, it's going to be fast turnaround task orders. So we have to set ourselves up in terms of building a task order machine and past performance database, data calls, and all of that. So,
which is, we're familiar with the process, yeah, because our TSS BPA, which is about $500 million at GSA, same scenario. The only thing with the TSS was that it was coming from across GSA versus just one of the offices. It was not just that. So it was the same kind of a thing. It would come out, we shared the task orders with the team, and it was always within a 2-week turnaround time that they were asking.
What's the typical turnaround for award that you've seen on that VPA, and what's expected on COMET? And I always say that as a small business, obviously staffing is a huge concern, especially in the DC market.
Absolutely. So on that one, the response time, let's say, was about 2 to 3 weeks, and then the award time was within a month.
What was it like for ECAS? Also recent win.
For ECAS, we submitted and they awarded we submitted in August and they awarded by the end of September. And that was not.
That's a pretty sizable.
That was not an easy lift. That was a very heavy lift. And that was at the end of the fiscal year.
Do you anticipate them asking for keys? Do you anticipate them asking for keys?
They might ask for keys, yeah, they might ask for keys. And each time, well, even on TSS VPA, they would ask for keys each time, and it was, we were prepared to answer those, so, and we anticipate that they'll do this. But I don't think to a large extent, because they're asking for teams to be set up, they may ask for like 2 or 3. I don't think it's gonna be like, show up with your whole team.
Got it. Do we anticipate most of the task orders to be challenge-based?
I don't think they're going to do tech challenges
Good.
anymore. I think we're done with the tech challenge piece.
I hope that's true.
Yeah.
7 task orders, 7 challenges.
Yeah. But sometimes we actually said, just to let everybody know, we were the only team that, from what they're telling us, is that we were one of the only teams that finished our entire task during the tech challenge. There were teams that actually got an award, and there's issues some people are bringing up with them that they didn't finish their challenge, they didn't complete their challenge. So sometimes, we had pushed for this challenge to happen through the acquisition process, and so I don't know, it might behoove us for them to have challenges again, but it's just difficult because you have to spin up a team to work on a challenge for whatever amount of weeks to prepare for that tech challenge, so it's not easy.
By the way, we are good at it, and I was in the room for the challenge actually. I was the water boy. But we had a round of applause from the evaluators once we finished the challenge. So, yeah, to Gisa's point, we did extremely well. So, not to worry, just the logistics of it.
Yeah. No, it might be worth it in some cases.
Yes.
Capture.
Next slide. So we talked through most of these, obviously past performance, shortly there'll be a data call. We're thinking about having a quarterly meeting of all team members, at least representatives, so that, again, that is not the only meeting, but that's the time where we can kind of reconcile. But as you can see, there's several slides. It's email, text, all of that. That will, we talk about market intelligence, talk about competition, talk about future task orders. There are several mechanisms we could do it, but at a minimum, we do the quarterly check-in with partners to kind of, see how this is going. Obviously, be successful as a team delivering these task orders. Solution development is going to be key. Then there'll be asks of several of you, depending on what task order, what is the nature of task order. There'll be review, support request, solution review, technical solution review, participating in solution architecture. So these are some examples of asks that will happen depending on the nature of the task order.
I have a quick question about that. Are you guys thinking about trying to do something like a standard development workflow across all of the potential task orders so that there is, how do I describe it, synchronicity among people, and it's a templatized, repeatable process in terms of development workflow, or however you want to put it, and tools associated with that? Or is that sort of beyond the scope?
No, actually, from the idea standpoint, again, the response is easy. I'm thinking through how it will work, because the nature of the task orders are so diverse. How would it work? But from a concept and idea standpoint, it totally makes sense, right? I mean, you templatize a lot of those synchronous activities. It makes sense. But where I'm struggling is that these task orders are so distinct and unique in nature. How would GSA go about it? But something to think about.
I mean, not so much for GSA, but for everybody here. Like, like the toolkit you're using to actually do the work and deliver it to the client. I mean, we do this all of us do this, I think, internally. We have a standard way of doing it. Maybe it would be easier over time if there was standardized ways of delivery. And
so we wrote a technical proposal which described our standard approach, our standard tool set, our standard methodologies. So I would say yes, we approach it in a standard way.
Right.
With the however, each of these systems are run by different communities, which are big communities of hundreds and hundreds of people.
Right.
Adapting our standard approach to that is the challenge. But yes, there is REI does business essentially a single way.
Yeah.
Maybe a conversation about that as we head
Yes,
into
exactly.
these task orders, and we can say, here's how we approach our technology stacks, here's how we approach our tools, our communications, all those kinds of things. Maybe that would be a helpful
like having
conversation
maybe a series of playbooks
Yes.
so that
Yes.
people are starting from the same point.
Yep.
And there's no kind of question, oh, we use, I don't know, Jira and somebody else uses some other tool, and then nobody can agree on how you're going to deal with this.
So we got all that. I think a good way to start would be a brief conversation, maybe a separate set up a meeting, and here's how we attack those technical problems.
Or maybe just creating a series of playbooks that people can look at and review and comment on, and then iterate on those before you even get something. That way you know how you're going to collaborate.
So do we have some intel on some of those task orders that we can already factor out or figure out these things that you're talking here and kind of prime ourselves already as to this is what's going to be tooling-wise, technology-wise, and process-wise? I mean, that's where it's going to help, I think, having that intel.
Yeah, I would say the first task order we talked about is a COTS implementation, probably not as appropriate, right? Not as applicable, if you will. But then, should we pick, if the next set of tasks are IAE, fleet, whatever, pick one and start to build it in response to that, and then lay that out as this becomes the first of the playbooks.
Yeah, because we have to tailor our past performances, and knowing that will also help in developing those past performances ahead of time.
Absolutely. I actually like Chris's point. I mean, he was, again, Chris, you were referring more to this group versus GSA.
Yeah.
Yes. So I get that. So that's where, some of our meeting mind melds that we do, because we at REI, we've been doing open source development for a while. We've sort of matured our DevSecOps pipeline. We have a stable set of tools that are on the pipeline. Let's reconcile. Let's see if that's what we want. So great.
What sort of set me off is in a previous slide you had the notion of having a portal, which I thought is like the starting point for that sort of kind of thing. And my immediate thought was, what about Slack or some other kind of messaging channel but then it evolves into a complete set of collaboration development tools that you're using so that everybody can work efficiently on this sort of thing. Because I think, I don't know, I can only speak for SVSG, but we've never worked with any of you guys, so we don't really know how that's going to play out. And so trying to figure that out in advance might be useful.
Many of us are familiar, especially with communication, like standardizing on Slack. Many of our teams across GSA, we are, different offices, we are on Slack on the same. So that's a great conversation to Phil, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just going to make an observation pertaining to templatization. We all strive for it as much as we possibly can. But one of the challenges that I saw in just reviewing these systems is they have a lot of different kinds of architectures. And you cannot assume that the technical capabilities that we have are always going to be the same across all those different types of language combinations, source to target, that you have to deal with. So in our experience, one of the biggest risks for any of these projects from a risk management perspective is understanding how to price them to take into account the variations in the maturity of the tech stack that you're applying to come up with solutions. By that I mean, if your level of automation, let's say for COBOL, which ours is typically 99.9% automated for COBOL conversions or better. But languages like, say, VAX macro assembler, I'm doing a project right now where I'm lifting up to Rust, that isn't as mature. And you'd have to go in recognizing that if you're doing IBM assembler, macro assembler, or other types of high order lifts, it's going to be a lot more complex and costly in the upfront. It's also going to be longer timeline. That the personnel who are available to work on more complex aspects of some of these complex conversions are going to be in short supply. So as these things start coming down the pike, you need to keep those factors in mind.
Yeah, I think I was more talking about the next layer up of tools that facilitate collaboration and co-working on things.
I think that's less of a risk than actually understanding really the core technology stack.
No, I agree with
that's where you can make your biggest and most risky mistakes, and assuring that the alignment of your solution with what the client's needs are is going to be able to deliver at the price point that you are proposing. Another major risk has to do with the cutoff point between, especially in modernization projects, and I have a lecture on this frequently, is the separation between automated conversion and enhancements. We've run into the biggest issues with clients where they blend it all together. Mm-hmm. There's a really well-known white paper from the Standish Group pertaining to what the difference is between manual conversion processes, which I think a lot of people would be much more familiar with than automated conversion, where they point out the importance of recognizing that division line between the push the button, code gets converted, get to functional state, make certain it works, and then you start doing enhancements, where there's something like a microservice refactoring, which is going to be something that should be done, but I think that it's been more of a buzzword recently than a realizable capability. There's a lot of different kinds of concepts about how you would integrate microservice extraction through a refactoring process into the conversion process. So these things have to be thought of extremely careful as far as what your target architectures are, and also the costs associated with achieving those things. And then what is the cutoff point to modernization? So a good example of that was when we modernized the European air traffic control system, and we consolidated 3 systems together automatically, and then worked with Thales to achieve a microservice architecture back in 2006. Eventually was deployed in 2010. But achieving that was it was a semi-automated process, and that human beings had to be involved to actually restructure the system from an architectural design perspective, and that flowed back into the transformation process. That required some new invention. No one had ever done that all before we invented that capability. So we have to keep those things in mind as we do it, and realize that something that you applied through, say, an 8 at a real-time Java conversion is going to require some adaptation if you're going to be going on a wholesale basis across multiple legacy languages to a target microservice architecture. And of course, your targets are going to change too, depending upon whether you're going Java, C#, C++, Rust, or other languages that are coming along.
Fantastic points. Thank you.
All very good points. Thank you.
Going to run through this fairly quick. We touched most of these.
So just the fact that, what we ask of you to do is, if you are not familiar with GSA, get familiar with GSA. Tell us how your capabilities align with FAS, specifically Federal Acquisition Services. And then it's constant dialogue. I'm your POC for that getting that conversation going on how do we get ourselves prepared for these task orders coming out. Please do not hesitate to not wait for these monthly, quarterly meetings that we have. Everybody should have my phone number. Everybody should have my cell phone number. So you can text me, and some of you do. You can email me, and you can call me. So as you think of things that relate to GSA, I spend a good portion of my time on a weekly basis at GSA talking to our customers. And so anything that you can, any ideas you have, anywhere that you think that there's a capability that you have that aligns well with some of the things that GSA is doing, please, 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 please tell us about them so that we can figure out how do we, the two of us, get together and go and present it to the right customer at GSA. And that will be my job, is to tell you who's the right person for us to go talk to, so that we can present that capability and get ourselves ahead of the task or work, or maybe work that, you know, they haven't even, I mean, last go around, two of the projects that depleted their funds were two projects that were not a part of Cameo. They were brand new projects, and you know, they just kind of shaped that work to go under Cameo. So there's work that we can shape that's not already planned out under COMET, but the majority of it is obviously what's there. They've got to modernize those. Okay, so we have, what's the next slide? Did you take that? Okay, can you talk real quick?
That's it, we're at time.
Yeah, just real quick to go through.
Okay,
Does
good.
everybody, do you have to, does anyone have a,
No,
you
we
gotta be
have
out
this-
the door at a certain time? We've got just a few more minutes. Oh, it says I'm
No, it's
walking, and I've been walking for 18 minutes.
So, do any of you have hard stop? I know we have passed 6 minutes.
Okay.
We have a couple more slides to go.
So, Ian, do you mind just walking us through how the proposal capture process works?
Yeah, sure. Take about a minute. We do have a standard proposal and capture process. We'll distribute it to everyone and make sure everyone's got the information. Standard artifacts, standard straightforward. It'll look the same just about every time we do it. We'll be looking for stuff the same way, and it will run fast. There's about a 2-week turnaround. So we will be asking for quick turns. That teaming selection process is largely dependent on responsiveness, on the alignment to the requirement. Of course, on our price execution, being able to be competitive and being able to deliver. So we'll execute on that a few times in the coming weeks. You'll see that coming and see how we do it. And I'll be reaching out so we have a little bit longer time, a little bit of more bandwidth to discuss this as we kind of develop this over the next week or so, and make sure that everybody's on board and has this straightforward over the next few weeks.
Similar to what we did over the actual COMET proposal, it's just that our timelines may be a little more expedited.
This may seem like a lot of boxes, but obviously with the response, this will all shrink. So,
you know, one of the most critical things associated with any
the business, you have a lot of interaction with product owners to understand the business and redefine that business and look for efficiencies. So I can't say that it's blanket, you're not going to get access to source code, it depends. But at least the couple I've been, and those have been leading edge modernization projects within GSA, no access to source code.
I mean, that's going to be a huge risk, I just tell you right now. If you want to talk about your biggest risk right now, it's when a client gives you, say, a COBOL system, claims it's 2 million lines, it turns out to be 30 million.
Yeah.
And you've signed up for it. You know, what do you do? And you've really got to, if you can, get access to the source code.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to be taking an approach that attempts to leverage technology and achieve extremely high levels of automation, at least to get to a functional equivalent, and then after that you do enhancements for business process, which is best done by first breaking it down on microservices and then re-architecting those capabilities you can preserve towards your target, your future target state. It's really important you get that code.
I mean, this is a great discussion. That I really am like, I want to have that, but quickly, in response, I gave my set of response, but generally, what do you feel? Like
I don't think you're going to get access to it.
I mean, the federal government, unfortunately,
I've done
doesn't.
assumptions to protect yourself against some of that.
Right, exactly.
Right?
In your
So-
POE.
I will say that even in the private sector, we've had instances where clients are just make it work like this thing, and we don't have the source code. So it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Other agencies we have seen where we have worked in a similar situation. I mean, we have business requirements and general, intent, and then you figure out what's more important actually to the customer is the legacy content that you need to migrate, not really the compute part of the source code, which they typically, we end up doing your own stuff,
Agree.
But I think you can cross that very, like some of that stuff we can cross, use the BOE, use those kind of things, and I mean, I understand the risk you're bringing up, but I think it's critical.
And so there's no chance for initial task orders to be a evaluation of the system that is tribal knowledge is lost in a system that's 3 decades old. So you could say you have access to the people who know how the systems work, but I promise you that when you get into it, there's a report that's critical that people don't know where it is or how it runs. There's a lot of embedded functionality that unless you can go through and automatically parse through it and extract that out, file dependencies, critical things like that that have to be extracted. So at some point, somehow, we have to be able to assess that system through a less human way, or something will have been forgotten in a 3-decade, 2-decade-old system.
Absolutely.
And if you miss it, they're not going to say, well, we failed to provide you the information you needed to modernize it. They're going to say you didn't modernize it correctly. So it's important to have a very thorough investigation of the as-is environment.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about automated conversion approaches to information system modernization is that it really works much like a cross-compiler. And if you're familiar with that, it's in a field of metaprogramming where your input is a source language, your output is a target language. And when you are dealing in that particular realm, the cost is really going to be very much related to the level of automation you bring to that particular process. If you have that level of automation, even your necessity to know what the system does, it sort of goes away. It's just a matter of can it achieve functional equivalence, because the original legacy system acts like an oracle. You want to capture all of the test data associated with it, convert it to the target side, instrument it to make certain that as you're running the system, it continues to produce the same kinds of log streams of data that it's processing. Those are so critical to assuring risk reduction, these types of things.
You volunteer for your technical discussion.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a great concept.
Yeah,
Fred?
In these initial tasks that could be coming out, do you foresee more of a lift and shift kind of scenario, or are they looking to re-engineer the functionality provided to their customers? Not, Fleet does this today, we want it to do the same thing on, pick a technology that's more modern. Is it, we need these things done by this system, how can you best make that happen for us?
I think that
So,
you go ahead.
it's that.
So, example of Fleet. I mentioned that they've been doing the re-engineering aspect of the requirements for over a year and a half now. The intention is not a lift and shift. It's not put a wrapper around it and it looks good. It's open source. No, they've been actually thinking about this. Now, the point Phil is making about access to the source code, it's genuine, right? But they have been thinking about how to improve their business function from a fleet management. How do we break up these functions, right? And then integrate it. Even to the point, FAS is thinking about some of these functions, how can we use across portfolios? So they are actually thinking about that. Now, to the point of will we have access to the source code? That's TBD. That's completely TBD. But to your point, Craig, yes, that's not necessarily a lift and shift. It's more looking at the business processes, looking for efficiency, doing proper usability studies, because a lot of the systems like assist.
They're dated systems, and so one of their, as an agency, their focus is that they want to bring more customers onto GSA so that they're buying their vehicles through GSA versus going and buying it themselves or leasing it themselves. So the idea is that in order for us to bring on more customers, we need more efficient systems, and clearly we have duplicate systems that do the same thing. We're logging into multiple systems to get one job done. So how do we get rid of that and have an efficient system so we can bring on more customers? And that's really, GSA functions very much like a business, and that's why I've always liked working with them, is because they think like a business. They make money. So they're in the business of making money, especially FAS is in the business of making money. They're in the business of fleet, property, making sure that contract acquisition, agencies that do their acquisitions through GSA versus doing it themselves. So how do we make ourselves more efficient so we get more customers and more business coming to GSA?
How are they handling change management with all these modernization efforts?
Huge, important topic, which we're constantly thinking about and talking through with them.
Well, I'm just thinking we're bringing an innovative approach in technology, and again, so in my experience, prior life, DHS, you guys, I'm sure, with the FEMA grant management modernization. That was a failed project 3 times over because they never got the users to buy in to what they wanted to modernize.
Absolutely.
So are those services part of these task orders, or is there separate contracts?
So they're really.
Or just like, hey, here's a new system, hopefully you use it.
Yeah, really they're looking
So the biggest difference is that they've already awarded the governance contract. There is an element of ECM in it.
Okay.
That is first step. But I also want to say that with individual task orders, change management some sort of change management built into it. But that's the first thing they did was that get that governance contract in place.
Well, I mean, it's all part of, test-driven, behavior-driven development stuff. It's about the user.
And I think community users, there's an environment dedicated to them that they can go and play, things like that. So they do that. Now, how effective it is, and those are some things that. But ECM is built in. ECM, the governance contract kind of takes care of that as well. So
we're just trying to tie that to our team success, right? Like, it's really great if we come up with whiz-bang dashboards and technology stacks, but ultimately it is about the utility of it and how used and readily used it is across GSA's customers.
Yeah, I think it gets a lot more complicated because the end users of some of these systems are sitting outside of GSA. So supply chain, you have DoD. Fleet management, you have the entire federal government. So it gets, and maybe at some point we should really influence that as conversations we are having with GSA, that change management has to be part of that particular task order outside of what the PMO is doing.
Excellent point.
And to that point, one of my sort of underwater concerns about the way this is structured is that success is often about iteration around user feedback. And I'm not sure how many of these task orders have that idea built into it. That can you iterate this thing over time in order to make it precisely the thing that the user wanted? Because the first go around, you're probably going to get it wrong no matter what. And I don't know how that's going to work.
Let me even add one more complexity to this. Take fleet management. GSA is currently, I think, maintaining 400, 500,000 cars. They purchase it, they maintain it, so on and so forth. They have been looking at using Uber, Lyft, rental cars. When you bring that into the equation, basically going back to redesigning this environment, redesigning the processes, that makes it a little bit more complicated. So I think it is very important that we start early with some of these teams and we try to influence, shape the approach for the task force.
And I think to your point, that that's kind of a user-driven trend. It seems to me like this is driven by their actual customers, and this is an important iteration, right? That you're trying to figure out the best incantation of the product that they could deliver, so to speak.
Picking up on what you just said about new concepts, the Tesla robo fleet is supposed to be coming out in a couple of years too. And any Tesla owner can put their car into the robo fleet, and it can act essentially as a taxi service. It's basically your car when you buy it. If it's capable of auto steering, it's going to be able to just drive you over, anybody over town, pilotless.
Another revenue source.
Another justification for buying a Tesla.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
One point I wanted to make. You mentioned the governance contract. I don't think you're talking about the architectural advisory, the credence of one of the awards. Yeah, and I think it probably makes sense to, and I don't know if you already have a relationship with them, but to establish that relationship with Credence. Because what my understanding is that they're going to have a solution architect advisor embedded in each of the teams as, kind of as the gatekeeper, making sure everything's going right. So it would be good to have that kind of, that established relationship with them so that we can get an idea of what role they're going to play. So that in our solutions, in our proposals, we can talk about how they're already, integrated. We've already talked to them. I know for a fact Carson is going to do that. So it's something.
I'm aware of that as well. No, but we work with Credence on other angles, so we do have that relationship.
So very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. So I think we're at the end of the program. Our chart flipper. Laugh.
He was like, you're overtime.
Exactly. Thank you very, very much. We truly appreciate you coming in. We truly appreciate all your support throughout the proposal process, and congratulations to all. So now we need to go and win some work.
I have just one question. Before we all disperse, can we make certain that we've all had a chance to exchange business cards?
So one thing I make a commitment to do